Testing, testing. Okay. So today I'll look at sneaking. So I implemented the slow walking, and it changes the game quite a lot, which is nice. And I implemented sneaking up to sleeping enemies, but I'm not quite satisfied with that. So if you look at the wolf that's sleeping there, if I hold down the wait button and move slowly, I can move up to the wolf and hit it for, I think, triple damage. But the problem is that not all enemies are sleeping, because that would be weird. And the that enemies are sleeping in the first place seems kind of weird. So it's not really, they're not really a satisfying target for the sneaking attacks. But what the slow walking does, in addition to walking up to sleeping enemies, is that you can now walk over the traps. I think I did that in the last stream. But also, if you're slow walking, you don't wake up skeletons or undead that are in the ground. And the turrets, I'm still working on the turret and how it reacts to the slow movement, because if I just not make the turret attack when you're slow walking, then the turret becomes basically becomes boring, because you can just disable it every time. But if I don't allow the slow walking, it's way too deadly, especially if it's in spots where you can't flank it. So I'm still working on that. So the originally, I think half a year ago or so, I had the sneaking implemented in that you can hide in bushes. And if I look at this situation right here, if I could move upwards and into these bushes right here, then I could sneak up on the undead and also do a sneak attack. But the way the bushes are distributed in the game, that's not always so clear cut. So there may be gaps. If I walk in these bushes with slow walking, I'm spending a lot of turns, so the undead might have just wandered off. So that's a problem. And there are also no patrolling enemies that you could predict that they would reach the bush that you're hiding in a predictable manner. So those are all questions that I haven't solved yet to make sneaking really be fun. And I could just implement it again and just see what happens, but I'm not quite sure if the hiding in bushes is the right way to go. So what I could do instead is look at this slow walking again and go without the sneaking and go through all the actions the player can take in the game and all the objects and see if it if there's a key to unlock sneaking. But yeah, so another problem with the sneaking in bushes is that there's no vegetation underground, so that would basically mean no sneaking in dungeons. So the bushes are probably too limiting, and maybe I shouldn't tie it to an object in the world. But then, so the other way to solve this is just to have the hero enter a sneaking state. So if I hold wait and walk, maybe immediately, maybe after 3 steps, I am then sneaking and could walk up even to enemies that are not asleep and ambush them. But the problem there is that generally a problem with sneaking is that I don't have a direction in which the enemies are looking. So if I have back to the bushes, if I have a gap in the bushes, I would want to jump that gap when no one's looking. But for that I would need to have an indicator of where the enemies are looking. I could do that by just simply holding down the wait button and then change the interface, or maybe highlight tiles in the world that are observed. But that leads, I think, too far away from where I am now. So those are too many additional features I would need to make this work. But yeah, what I did with the slow walking as well is that I made all the enemies hit harder. Or basically I made everything do more damage and have less health. And that includes the hero. So it's more high stakes because you now have extra tools to survive. And that makes the game, it slows the game down, which is okay. And yeah, it forces you to, in some situations, move more deliberately. So yeah, so the slow walking brings the game into a kind of a weird state right now. So it's not fully sneaking, but it's also not sneaking. And yeah, so if I look at this, so if I add the hiding in bushes, then of course I could escape monsters. If I jumped into these bushes, the undead should maybe destroy the one that I dove into, but not the one I'm then hiding in. But then the undead would just wander around and I would be stuck. So that's not really a good, not a playful situation. If the sneaking ends up where I was before. But generally, the being able to sneak, being able to hide, being able to avoid confrontations is something I would want, because it really fits the theme of the game. And because you're not... Because the hero is not a warrior in the sword and sorcery sense, more of a thief. That would, yeah, aid the game overall. But yeah, let me just play a bit and see. So now I'm underground, so sneaking... I mean, I could hide in these bones, piles of bones. Okay, that's evil. Opened the door and got shot. Let's look at some more situations. Maybe a way forward will present itself. So I could now jump into these bushes, but the undead has already lost sight of me. I could jump into the bush here, and then wait for the robber to walk away. Shoot it with a bow, maybe. Hey Lily, I'm a big fan of a loud stealth. There will be no survivors to tell my presence. You mean taking out all the enemies? I forgot to say hello. No worries. That's what I do in Skyrim, yeah. With the classic stealth archer. That's a lot of fun. But for that to work, you would have... I mean, I could make you hide in barrels, so that's not a problem. Barrels, bushes, bone piles. But the movement... So, to avoid this wolf that just came along, I could have... I mean, the wolf is not patrolling, it has me in sight. So jumping into the bush up there would have not saved me. But if the wolf was just running around, then I could have escaped it. So that's the patrolling enemies. And there's very little to hide in here. Well, there's an undead. There's one as well. Yeah, there's also no opportunity here. Yeah, so I would have to change the terrain a lot, probably. So I could walk in these bushes, but there are no enemies. Maybe here, but then I would... Well, the wolf saw me. I mean, if I had indicators that, for example, let's imagine here was an undead and I was walking up here and it saw me, and then I hid behind this pillar and the undead would show a question mark on its head, because it lost sight of me, and would begin searching. That could be fun, but then the undead would have to be really deadly. So running up to it and hitting it must be a bad idea for me to even think of hiding. So that's another problem. Or hiding gives me the advantage of an ambush attack. Somehow, but then I would probably need the look direction. So let's say the undead came up here towards me, and then I'll walk around, stab it in the back. So the directionality of where the enemy is facing would be really helpful. So let's say attacks from behind do double damage or something. Then that would maybe play well with hiding in bushes. If I hide in a bush and the enemy lost sight of me, they may begin looking around. And if they look in a opposite direction, maybe they don't detect me as fast. So even if the undead was standing here and I was in the bush to the south, and the undead was looking north, I could jump out and attack it from behind, even though I stepped out of hiding. But the question is, how do I depict the direction the enemy is looking in without cluttering everything up? But yeah, double damage. So attacking from behind, that unlocks line of sight. Hiding. It unlocks sneaking up. Sneaking up to enemies. So that could then replace the sleeping enemies. I mean, enemies could still sleep, but then only maybe back to the trolls or something. Trolls and bears. And the rest would be awake, but you had this mechanic. Yeah, so that would also unlock waiting in bushes or hiding, or waiting and hiding. How would I depict the direction? So the easiest solution is I don't depict it, but you have to remember in which direction the enemy walked last. But how could that fail? But I think that's actually, yeah, that's the most promising approach, I think. I would need new idle behaviors. That is losing sight and searching. And what else? So slow walking now also allows you to walk past spider cocoons, which is pretty fun. Especially if you mess up and all of them burst at once. Question is, do I still need the hiding in bushes? Probably. So enemy directionality and hiding in bushes. Yeah, the directionality alone would be pretty awesome. So you could sneak up on an enemy that's... Well, that's the question. Does it have to look away from you, or can he move up in a 90-degree angle? No, completely missed that trap. So I could also just put in little dots to where the enemies are looking. Because the hero would be able to see. So that would then mean little dots on the top, bottom, left and right. But that will overlap with neighboring enemies. Or I could make it so that you have to wait a turn and then the directions all blink once. But the enemies may move in that turn. But that's okay, I think. So I think you having to remember where an enemy was facing is not that bad. But how does this play out with multiple enemies on screen? I think I'll just have to try it out. Yeah, so let's fix the turrets real quick. So they shoot on sight. And I had it so that if you're sneaking, they just don't shoot. But that's lame. Well, let's just put it in back in. That is BC turret. So if it's shooting at the hero and hero is slow moving, don't do anything. So there could be a timer if you move in the sides of the turret. But actually, I can actually just do that. So you can cross the shoot direction, but you can't run along it in stealth. For that, I would need to know if the hero is walking towards or away from, or did walk. Yeah, this actually, I think I can just make this a distance check. So if that's an additional condition. So the distance between turret and the hero's previous position has to be the same as the current one. Otherwise, the turret will shoot. Make. Let's try that. I have a turret. Some slow walking, and that didn't work. Wait, haven't I fixed that? Okay, that's just probably a okay, I think Manhattan distance doesn't work. Yeah, that doesn't work. I need the axial. Well, oh god. Hero previous position X is hero position dot X. Or hero previous Y is hero current Y. That also doesn't work, does it? No, has to be in relation to the turret. Just doodling. So I can make sense of this. So if the X, no, if Y, if the turret Y is equal to the hero Y, then I check the hero's previous position X. And if the turret.x is equal to the hero.x, I check hero.y is equal to previous hero.y. That should work, but I need a function for that. Static int moved towards. Great. Turns 1 if entity E moved, actually A moved towards B in the previous turn. So if A moved towards B, actually let's swap that. Naming is hard. So if a dot y is, actually I need the position, is equal to b y, that means it could only have moved horizontally. Then I return b ppx is equal to p px is not equal. Yeah. And then the reverse. So if they're horizontally aligned, I check if the entity moved horizontally. Actually, neared is wrong. Well, I could actually just test if you move towards the turret, not away from it, but no. Yeah, that's just bad. Don't know what to call this. This is pretty specific, so it probably shouldn't be a function, but okay, let's hope that works. And this is the turret, and this is the hero. Yeah. Turn 0. See if that works. Let's clean this up. Oh, I didn't. Okay, so this is normal, but let's slow move. not hitting. It's a bit weird. I have to... It has a cooldown and I have to hit that cooldown. But if I move in the direction, then it shoots at me. Okay. Got disconnected for a while there. Back now. Welcome back. Okay, this seems to work. It does 0 damage because I'm in the test room. And the scaling is not active. Okay. Let's actually test this in game. Let's hope we find a turret. Jesus. Yeah, I also upped the number of enemies, but this is a bit much, so that's bad luck. Okay, 1 turret, please. Well. No turrets. Okay, why do they die so fast? I'll have to look at the scaling. One turret. I only need 1. Okay, there's 1. So I walk into it and it triggered. So let's, I'm waiting for the cooldown to, okay, it's shooting at the rubber down there. Okay, if I slow move into its line of fire, does nothing. If I move towards it, it fires. So to disable them, you have to slow move next to them and then destroy them. Which should work, except if they are set in a corridor and firing down the corridor, and then you're still screwed. But you still could use, but it's really hard, but you still could use the shield to block every single shot, but that's very difficult. And you'd have to have a shield. So maybe they should do a bit less damage. Great. But let's leave it at that with the turrets. So a line of sight. I mean, I have it already, the data, because I have the previous position for all the entities and the current position. So if I subtract them the right way, I have the direction the entity is looking at. But how do I visualize that? Because it's one thing to make it non-obvious, so that it's a bit harder, but it's a different thing for new players that maybe don't get what's going on. So not showing the direction is probably bad. And also, yeah, the problem is actually not so much the direction as your state in being seen or not. So no idea how I would solve that. And also, what about enemies that haven't moved at all? Like this skeleton that's sleeping. So I mean, the sleeping enemies are basically just a more black and white version of hero is being seen or not being seen. But it has also implications on the world. So why are enemies sleeping? Why would a skeleton sleep? So that's just everything sleeps right now with a chance, just so I could test the slow walk attacks. But it doesn't make sense really. But is there maybe another way? That easily depicts your visibility in relation to an enemy. Yeah, that may just be too hard right now. So, hiding in the bushes. I think that that cannot stand on its own. Especially if I remove all these sleeping enemies. Or most of them. It also makes all of the bushes non-obstacles. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So only the rocks are really then limiting the playfield, and of course the boundaries. Or the edges. But if there was an easy way to depict where an enemy is looking, that also works for if you're being detected or not. I mean, I could just change the interface to, first of all, give you a clear indicator that you are now sneaking. And then remove some information, add other information. So if I'm slowly moving, well, okay, what is this? Okay, I think I escaped again. What is happening? What? I think the editor broke the game again. The heck? Oh, I don't have the path enabled. Yeah, I'm stupid. Oh, this is tricky. So I'm slowly moving, and maybe it could just be an indicator of, I mean, the enemies changing the look direction is also pretty random. You can't really foretell that it'll happen. So what if I just make it a binary state that is alert or not alert? That would basically be a version of asleep, not asleep, that works any time of day and in every setting. And then, but that doesn't give me a direction I need to attack from. I could give each monster its own direction from which it needs to be attacked. Does that make sense? Maybe some monsters only from the top and the bottom, and some only from the sides. But that's not... Well, that could actually work. And I have alert, not alert in combat, not in combat. So no. So if an enemy is in combat, there's no hiding. There's no attack bonus. That makes sense. And then if enemies were only attackable from a specific direction, let's say first only for these sneak attacks, not in general, then that would make sense to wait until it passes by you in a and moves to a position that's favorable. That may be enough, but it's not as natural as having a look direction, and I would have to indicate the attackable direction in any case. So I still need the indicators. So I can just as well go with the showing its back to you. Many unanswered questions. So could this work without hiding in the bushes? It could be sneaking here. And then yeah, I would have had to look at where the undead was looking. But then yeah, it can work without the bushes. So how do I indicate the direction? Is it just a dot or is it... or what is it? And what if you attack from the front? Is there a penalty? Or what's happening? Does the enemy have a shield maybe? So I mean, I could... So this could also play into the shield, for example, if I stun an enemy and then walk behind them, even not in stealth. Or the quicksand traps, where an enemy could get stuck and then strike. So yeah, those are actually two different things. The directionality and sneaking. So well, the directionality plays into it, of course. But it would then also have to be fun to exploit it while not in stealth. Probably, maybe. Maybe it doesn't matter if you're not in stealth. Oh, great. What was the other idea? I think it was just the line of sight brought this, got this moving from just lurking in the bushes and waiting for something to attack you. Yeah, so it would hide in the bushes right here, but then nothing would happen. So not that ideal. So it's, I think how the terrain is made would be applicable only sometimes. So I mean, I can move up to this skeleton right now because it's not spawned. So that's another thing. So yeah, the other question is how in depth does this have to be? Okay, I have a shield. Let's try this. Block and destroy. So that works. Okay, there's nothing to sneak attack here. That's an archer. That's pretty deadly. So yeah, I think stealth should more be a solution like that boulder right there. A solution to a problem. As compared to being the default mode and how you walk through the game. And that would then also make it easier to implement. If it's just something you use in certain situations. Jesus. For example, when an enemy is sleeping, that would be that type of situation. Which is already in the game. Okay, those are hitting pretty hard. Might have to adjust that again. The damage that the enemies make. So I mean, the slow walking is useful in a few situations now. So that's so I think that's pretty cool, and shouldn't be a problem to add that to the game. But real stealth is, yeah, really not thought out well. And I'm actually not sure if it makes sense in this game. Although I love the idea of hiding and lurking. There's just no mechanics that would support that right now, at least. And if I add the direction in which the enemies are looking, then that turns the whole game into a stealth game, basically. And it also means I would have to adjust everything to accommodate that. To a degree, of course. God. But I can still sneak past those eggs, but I can't open the door. Okay. So this little dungeon is pretty cool, actually. And pretty deadly as well. So yeah, these small places are actually pretty fun. I should add more of them. Okay, of course now it's all the way back. Okay. Yeah, enemies are definitely too strong. So I had as a goal for the sneaking, so it had to... The moves would be to avoid confrontation, disable threats, escape confrontation, and observe from hiding. But there's no need for all of that right now. Another idea was that I add a new enemy type or something akin to that. That is much stronger, and that you basically have to avoid using stealth, or otherwise you're doomed. But that's also a new feature. So stealth isn't supported by the game right now. Only with extra stuff. And before I add new stuff, I would want to work on what I have. And the slow walking was combining a lot of stuff. It was actually replacing a few things and making them work better together. And yeah, I think... Jesus. I think that's what I'll do for another few 1 or 2 weeks or so, and then only then start adding new stuff. That's the idea. But I mean, the slow walking is kind of new, so those kind of things. Yeah, and specifically I want to look at the food, because food is weird right now. The score as well. Score is also gold, and scores is also a pretty kind of weird, and other stuff like that. So if I bring them all in great shape, then I'm in a much better position to expand the game. And they may even make the game much more suitable towards stealth gameplay, and make it a no-brainer to include, for example. Okay, but if I look at this, hiding in these bushes, I mean, I killed all the enemies already. That's a stupid example. But for here, if I jump in these bushes, I could take out the snake. The snake is already sleeping, so I can do that just now. One thing I was thinking of was adding, so if I move in the other direction, if I stay with the sleeping enemies, I could add, for example, arrows, but that would be a bit more work, or throwable potions that put everything to sleep, and then you can pick them off one by one. It could be plants in the world that you shoot with your arrow, and they explode powder, and everything goes to sleep. Could be tied in with the weapons, so only the dagger is able to do these backstabbing attacks. And you would then maybe, I'm still looking at the resting, if you're at a camp and you switch from day to night, and at night more things are asleep. And if you have a dagger, then that would be of an advantage, and then maybe make the dagger work worse, less effective during the day or something like that. So there are ways, there are also ways to make the sleeping attacks better. And yeah, I mean, if the indicator of the look direction of the enemies would be not that insanely awkward, then maybe I wouldn't hesitate as much. But I mean, the blinking itself is already a lot, and I don't want this to turn into a spreadsheet simulator. So maybe I find an intuitive way to indicate that, but no idea right now, other than putting ugly dots on the screen. So yeah, I'll look at the slow walking a bit more. Maybe actually test out hiding in the bushes, although yeah, I'll think about it a bit more, what the uses for that would be. Because seems also pretty useless right now, at least. But yeah, I'll look at it. Okay guys, so another thinking stream. I maybe yeah, don't know. Not sure if these are very helpful. Maybe I'll stream only when I really have something to show. Not sure. That would be more productive. But yeah, that's where I am with the sneaking. If you have an idea, please let me know how to solve any of these problems. And I will keep thinking. Yep. Alright guys, thanks for watching, thanks for stopping by, and I will see you probably tomorrow. Alright guys, bye bye.